Everybody.
So I think we're ready. So you can kick off, and put Rod as the host.
All right, cool. Before I begin, can I get permission to share my screen? I have 5 slides I want to share with you guys.
Yes, done. Yeah, you should be able to do it now.
Also, just for
Yep.
context
All
for
right.
everybody that just got here, Albert's a great friend of mine. He's done a lot of research in this health fitness space. He also runs his own agency. So he's done a lot of work from the marketing and ad agency side of things. And also is working on a lot of interesting projects, which is why he's here tonight. So I'll take over and kind of share what he's got prepared for us, and then we'll open the floor up for any questions that you guys might have and want to ask him, and then we can keep it rolling from there. Sound good to everybody?
Sounds good.
Cool. All right,
All
I'll
right,
take
cool.
it away.
All right. Thank you for the intro. A little bit about myself. My name is Albert Lan. I'm Taiwanese American, and I kind of grew up in between Taiwan and the States, and that kind of makes me neither. I don't know where I'm from exactly. I have an accent in English and I have an accent in Chinese. I'm not considered like American, neither am I Taiwanese. It's trippy being me, which will come back to our conversation, my slides in a little bit. So I want to take a minute to share about my background, how I went from a print designer, a graphic designer, to multimedia, and then to videos, and now into interactive content. It's a pretty interesting journey. I did a quick timeline of my career last night, and I was like, okay, so it's about roughly every 5 years something will change. So I will start right away. Okay. Oops, 1 second. So I don't have the option for optimized screen share for video clip. Is that normal?
No, not normal. Let me see. Let me check advanced sharing options here. Yeah. All right, try that again.
All right. Yep.
You're trying to share like sound?
Yes, now I can.
Okay.
Sound and video clip.
Awesome.
All right, cool. So real quickly, if I may give one motivational tip today, that would be follow your passion. That's what kind of led me to where I am today. So I used to be a breakdancer, a illustrator, and a music producer, wannabe. I wasn't very good at any of them until I ran into Flash, the program from Macromedia back then. And that kind of gave me a stage to put everything I knew together. We have the visuals, we have the movements, and we have the audios. So that program allowed me to fuse my 3 hobbies. And so right before I graduated, I got my my degree in college in graphic design. I asked my professor, I was like, hey, we've been doing letterpressing wood blocks for a few years now. Are we gonna learn Photoshop? Anything useful I can put on resume? And he was like, no, you don't go to college for that. That's where you go to technical school for that. I was like, okay, that's not very helpful. So I bought 2 books, one on Photoshop and one on Flash. And I spent the next year kind of caved in my little apartment. And then I built a website, and that launched my career. So there we go. So as you can see, I was incorporating a lot of the Asian elements because that's what it looked like. And then from there, I started winning indie artists. dance studios projects, and then small businesses. And then over time, bigger technology corporations came to me to build corporate websites, portals. So that was pretty fun for the first 3-5 years. And then iPhone came out. And Steve Jobs kind of announced the death of Flash. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Someone took my canvas away. So that's when I started looking, okay, so I can either get into app development or something else. And apps just wasn't that interesting at the time. So I was like, okay, so we have YouTube coming up, we have Facebook coming up, everybody needs video. So I kind of pivot towards video. So for the next 5 years, we started taking on little video jobs, and then things led to one another. So in the beginning, we were doing product videos. So 3D animation, sometimes real photo shoots, and then we start adding a little bit of our own flavor, some touches here and there, and then we got into viral videos, and then we got into TV spots, and then campaigns, full videos. So one thing just leads to another, and we always try out little different things, VFX, be it cinematography, just experimenting as conceptually as well. So things were pretty good. We were able to attract lots of multinational, mostly tech corporations, just because that's where we are, Taiwan. Taiwan is very tech heavy. Things were great. Our revenue was the highest around 2014. And we started to pick up some awards here and there. And then 2015, that's the year we went to Cannes Lions in the French Riviera. And that was supposed to be like the height of my career. I was very excited to go there. And once I got there, I started meeting different creative directors from all around the world. And then, won some small award there. But then it hit me, like, these people don't seem to realize what might come next. They were pretty content where they were. And then I met a British author who was promoting his book called Manslaughter on Madison Avenue. And the book basically talks about how back in the 60s or 80s, Warren Buffett famously said advertising was the best industry to invest in. Very low overhead, mostly just margins. And then consulting agencies came along, and they start taking away all the jobs, all the paychecks from the agencies. And then smaller and smaller shops start showing up as the desktop publishing tools became available to everybody. So that was my turning point. I was like, oh my God, like something has to change. And then I saw some trends that year. In-house agencies were getting more and more popular. I met the guys who set up the in-house agency for IKEA worldwide. And I was like, okay, so this might become the trend. And then within a couple of years, Apple announced they were going to do their own in-house agency. So my walk away from that 2015 Cannes Lions event was that we need to change to survive. And I remember meeting David Droga, the guy behind Droga 5, New York agency. And I asked him, are you guys incorporating AI? Are you guys doing anything data-driven? And he just looked at me like, you're crazy. And I was like, okay. But you guys are losing talents to Silicon Valley and the financial district, Wall Street. Those were the two big magnets of all the creative talents. And you guys are not incorporating technology to your work process, and you are one of the best. So I was pretty surprised. So then for the next couple of years, I started wondering like, okay, so what should I do next? What should I do next? What is next, right? And so I got kind of stuck. I knew I wanted to move towards content, but I just wasn't sure how. Like, I'm not gonna become a movie director overnight. So what is it? And then one day, a friend of mine came up to me. He was like, Albert, have you heard of the Taiwanese puppet show? And I was like, what? Like, so it's that I started looking into it is this traditional glove puppet show that originated from China hundreds of years ago. And it's kind of like a counterculture movement. People will do it on the street. And then most of the time in front of a temple to please the god. But the government did not like it. This was like roughly around the Cultural Revolution. So there was a lot of oppression on anything creative. So what does this have to do with the mirror, Lululemon? Well, so this puppet show led me to came to some pretty crazy epiphany. So my friend was like this. Oh, a little background. So this guy, he is like the godfather of hip hop in Asia. His teacher was the guy that invented robot dance, popping, who was also the teacher of Michael Jackson. So my friend has, he has his own track record, his own credentials, and he brought up this Taiwanese puppet show. I was like, what? What do you want to do with it? He's like, I don't know, but let's make it hip hop. I was like, what? Centuries old puppet show, Asian puppet show, and hip hop? Like, how does that make any sense? So that led me down a rabbit hole for about 6 months. I started looking into the history of it, all the politics, all the religions that comes with it. And then I started asking some fundamental questions, like what is a puppet show? What are the elements that consist of it? So first we have the puppet, right? And then we have the puppeteer, the guy that's behind the puppet. And we have the stage. So roughly 3 major elements. And then we're like, okay, so if we want to do this in a modern style, we need to upgrade not just the context, but also the technology. How do we incorporate technology in this? So I was like, okay, so puppet, that's essentially an avatar in the digital world. All the game engines now are almost photorealistic. So I know that can be done. All the computer speed are fast enough. So I was like, okay, so we can replace puppets with avatar. How about the puppeteer, right? Because if you think about it, if you have one puppet, but 2 different puppeteers playing him, then who is he, right? That became a philosophical question for me. I was like, yeah, like, am I myself? Like, what if my free will is somebody else's? What is free will? So things went trippy really fast until I saw this graph of the Chinese hell. The Chinese hell has 18 levels down. Like the worst is on the bottom. Lots of infinite torturing, all that stuff. But I stepped back. I was like, as a web designer, this graph looks like database. Why does hell look like database? And then it hit me like, oh my God, like big data, AI, that we can one day create free will out of that. So I was like, okay, so the puppeteer is AI plus blockchain. That's the direction. And then I was thinking, okay, so what is the stage? In the traditional sense, the stage is this wooden piece of wood, like a panel you carry around with a roughly 16:9 hole cut out, and then the puppeteer will hide behind it. And I was like, okay, so what would be the equivalent for the modern day stage if we want to move digitally? And then that's where I discovered the term transmedia. The term is kind of like Marvel Universe, right? You tell a united story across multiple mediums. So take Iron Man. Iron Man started from comic books. It has its own movies, and then the whole MCU movie franchise, the Avengers. And I was like, okay, that's fascinating because everything's connected right now. We've been talking about cloud computing, ambient computing, wearable, all that fun stuff, IoT. And then I was like, okay, so if we can create this virtual being that has his, free will to an extent, wouldn't it be nice if he can talk to me via the smart speakers, or I can text him on my wearable, on my smartwatch, or if I put on MR glasses and watch a television, Mickey Mouse can be in the TV 1 minute, next minute jumping out, sitting next to me, order takeout food for me. And that's when I got very excited, but for some reason also concerned. And that's when I realized, oh my God, the Matrix is here. We are very close from getting there. If we can simulate human beings, anything else is possible. So that was my epiphany, coming from a very interesting Taiwanese puppet show. And then for the next 2 years, I set out to figure out how to turn this epiphany into a business. I'm not fully there yet, but I think virtual influencer, it's gonna be the next big thing for advertising. Because if you look at advertising, a lot of the revenues, the budgets are being taken away by human influencers, as well as other factors. Lots of them went to all the big techs, right? Facebook, Google. And then this one guy, former engineer from Facebook, he recently said he believes the apps are over. The next big thing would be decentralized links. So essentially influencers, people who can generate eyeballs and then provide links and charge on that. So affiliate marketing. So I was like, okay, so I see all the signs that virtual influencers will become the next big thing. They have been around in Asia for a decade now, and just starting out in America, which will impact the whole world. So anyway, I put together a short video clip to share with you guys what I've been messing with over the past 2 years, and then we can start talking about how that might be able to apply to the mirror and wellness space.
噔噔噔噔，嗨！
哎，廖喜喜，回来的时候帮我买吃的。
等一下，你用假账号进来干嘛？
你闭嘴啦！回来帮我买吃的。
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Natasha. May I recommend Tai Chi to start your day with?
And the first one is called cloud waving. It's a great exercise to help circulation of the body.
Okay, so that's the end of my slide. Let's see. Are you guys still there?
Wow. Speech.
Are we here?
My goodness.
Yeah, well, Al, thanks so much for that amazing presentation. Is there anything else that you want to share, or should we open this up for questions? And you have anything that you kind of want to open up for everyone to talk about?
Yeah, just personal observation. I was looking in the mirror. I really felt we could come up with a better product. However, something was always missing in the back of my head. I didn't feel comfortable go and raise money just yet. And then I think I know now. I know why now. It's because as a creator, I don't want to just pump out yoga classes. I mean, there's art to itself, but not a whole lot of story to it, because you'll be focusing on, hey, step 1, 2, and 3. And then based off my survey with just interviewing people on the street, I realized people want to take classes from someone they know. So recognition is pretty important, right? Doesn't have to be somebody with awards and whatnot, but at least a friend, a familiar face. That's why I want to pivot the business a little bit to focus on just the characters first. Let's see if we can build some kind of relationships between the avatars and the users. Once we establish that, we can sell them anything, really, I think.
I think that's a good idea.
Albert, I'm curious. I love the use of virtual influencers, right? And we already see some early adopters, right? KFC is a great example of digitizing their kernel. There are a lot of examples in fashion of using virtual influencers as well. But do you see any downsides of not having? I mean, so in other words, if I were Lululemon right now, and let's say I have $100 million to spend on marketing next year, what would be your case of trying to convince me as brand manager to either spend $100 million on human influencers versus $100 million on virtual influencers? Where's the trade there?
Well, I think it will be a transition. Obviously, in the beginning will be mostly human, But over time, as the virtual influencer adaptation comes along, I think the budget will shift. Look at TV and film, okay? Look how gaming overtook the two industries within a course of maybe a few decades. So now the gaming industry is, I think, is bigger than TV and film combined. This happened a few years ago. So it doesn't happen overnight.
I like it. So I also gonna say, does anybody in the class have any questions or like thoughts that they want to add on or want to ask Al? Michael, go.
Hey guys, it's Mike Watson here. I really love it. I love how you talked about all your different attributes and how you did a deep dive in terms of all your talents and everything that you were exposed to, and you kind of, made, basically put everything together to tell your story. Somebody similar that I know is a dear friend, and I've been talking about him in particular, who's pretty passionate about Taiwan here in the United States. His name is Eddie Wong. Are you familiar with him? Yeah, so he's
Eddie
one
Wong,
of my,
the chef?
The chef, the media influencer.
Bauhaus.
Yes, Bauhaus. So that's one of my
best.
Yes. Yeah, so we were on the same basketball team back in law school, and I dropped out, but whatever. But I love how, like, I saw the similarities, and I love the fact that he didn't really fit in a box. He kind of just like, he loved hip hop. He loved, being social justice. And I think that the world lends to that. I think the world is unconventional. And I really, really appreciate you just just letting all your talents flow. And it was really, really, I really appreciate it, man. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been asking myself this, why am I drawn to hip hop? I spent most of my childhood in Taiwan. Hip hop wasn't here yet. People were into the 80s rock and roll back then. So when I got to the States in early 90s, that's when gangster rap came along. And I was like, oh, rebellious. I love it. That's how I learned my English. My roommate wrote down every single word to Snoop albums, and I would just read them every single night. But so a quick observation of myself, because this whole journey of trying to figure out who am I, what am I good at, what should I do next, made me question every decision I've made. And one interesting is I took a lot of classes on African American history when I was in college. Yes, I didn't know why. I just studied everything about them. The whole the diaspora of the music. It started from Africa, on the boat to America. Blues was born. Once they landed, became jazz, rock and roll, British rock, back and forth. So that kind of cultural movement has always been my my passion. And I remember talking to Travis, you know what? I'm not like a very black loving person. I don't try to be that. I have zero problem with any race whatsoever, but I'm always drawn to black people for some reason. I don't know why. I'm not trying to be cool, okay? I know I don't look like it. And then I think I know why. Because Taiwan suffers from oppression. And African Americans, or Africans in general, have been suffering oppression throughout their history. So I think that's how I have empathy for the culture, and I'm always hopeful because I know, wow, if hip hop can born out of all that crap, we can do something pretty good out of our situations as well.
You're all right, Al. I love it. And one of the other things I also love too about what you kind of put together for everyone is just kind of like the full, also, by the way, it's only been 25 minutes, but I feel like you've taken us on a decade long journey. And just to highlight that for everybody, you now see the power of storytelling in first-hand experience, because I'm sure there are moments where you're like, what the heck is he talking about with these puppets? What?
Yeah.
But then when you brought it back, you were like, oh. And it might not all make sense, but that's kind of the whole point of a great story, right? it's to get you entrenched and get you feeling like you want to understand what's about to happen next. And then once you get to the end, you're like, oh, snap, like we're here now. So Eric, I don't know if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to take a quick screenshot here, just documenting memories. First of all, Albert, that was a great story. I should have started by saying that. And as a fellow Taiwanese American, love it, love it. Yeah. I for me, I'm really curious about also your multicultural background, and then also when it comes to doing your work, obviously having a passion in content. And guys, this is something that I was talking about in earlier classes, right? Strategy takes on so many different forms, but it all comes back down to exactly what Trav was saying, right? Storytelling. And storytelling, in this case, what I saw was a whole bunch of different cultural touch points coming together to influence one person's trajectory, and then having that influence the kind of work that comes out of it. So, Albert, I'd love to hear from your perspective, going to places like Cannes, obviously very different than, the places that you may have grown up in, or the surroundings or the people that you were grown up with, or the stories that you were being taught, right? So how would you say that you go about the world observing all these different cultural touch points? How do you filter all of that down into things that you can reutilize or re-weaponize in the work that you put out back into the world? And then I guess question part B of that is, what kind of impact do you want to have on the storytelling business, the creative industry at the end of the day? When you're gone, what's your legacy?
Oh, I love your question. Thank you. So because of my multicultural background, I was very fortunate to meet people from all walks of life. And one thing I found that always works to break down the cultural language barrier is just to ask simple questions. Keep everything simple, right? Remove all the jargons, remove all the adjectives. What else is left there? So a lot of whys, hows. That kind of taught me how to listen very carefully, because everyone has different accent. So you have to listen really carefully. And I try to keep my personality is more on the quiet side. So I like to learn as much as I can, because when I first moved back to America when I was 14, I didn't speak a whole lot of English. Because I was born in the States, but moved back to Taiwan when I was like a year and a half old. So when I came back to the States, I barely spoke any English. So I was always clueless. I would have nightmares about missing classes, missing homeworks. Just living, I was in constant fear, like, I don't know what's going on. I never know, but I'll always smile and nod. That was my survival skill. So I think having this experience growing up made me very humble, made me very curious, made me always doubt myself, like, can this be done better? Am I stupid, or is this world actually stupid? So for the first half of my life, yes, I was stupid. Second half, no, it wasn't my fault. The world's pretty messed up. Let's admit it. Anyways, so back onto your second question, how can we tie storytelling into content, interactive stuff? The way I see it is that our perception of reality is being shaped by digital media nowadays, right? All the fake news, all the consequences that comes with it. Because we are, fun fact, over 90% of American adults spend about 90% of their time indoor, including commute. That was my research on wellness. I was like, oh, wow. Like, we're not that far from Matrix, huh? We are indoor a lot. We just need a USB cable to the back of our heads. So the way we see the world is shaped by media. And as media evolves, we have smart speakers, smart everything, and wearables. We're becoming cyborg. So our body is eventually gonna become the next medium. And then who am I at that point? So I started asking all these weird questions, and I was like, oh, this is not good. Like, if this kind of power gets put in the wrong hands, I think humanity will get even worse. That's pretty much my motivation of wanting to make this happen. Before somebody with bad intention makes it big, I want to be there first and see what happens. So yeah, storytelling. I think storytelling, fictional and reality is gonna start to blend over time. Just look at your Facebook walls, right? Everybody's Facebook walls look different. It looks like complete different universes.
I don't think my Facebook is real. I look at the notifications and be like, if y'all know me, y'all would not be sending me this stuff. That's just me personally. But I 100% agree with that perception of reality, and I think that's something also to consider as we all think about the final outputs, right? Like as you're thinking of the different solutions and how Mirror could be positioned, like what sorts of insights can you guys all take away from a lot of the stuff that Albert shared so far with us today, and then how could this apply to that potential problem or that situation that you guys are solving for with your final presentation? So yeah, that's I think it's also interesting too with your research. I'm also curious from anybody out there, just from a curiosity perspective, like what else is everyone curious to kind of hear about while we have Albert in front of us? Because I could ask him questions all day, but I want to make sure that y'all get to ask and talk with him. Jose, I hear you.
I actually have a question. So how close to this is it? Like, for example, brands have mascots, right? They've always had like something to represent who they are. Do you think that these virtual influencers are a reincarnation, more personalized version of mascots, personalized for the person's likes, interests, that it would appeal more to them? Do you see that as the next step for that, or do you see that as something completely different?
From a business perspective, I think applying this kind of techniques to mascots makes very good business sense because the technology is not fully there. AI is not God yet, not even close. AI is still pretty dumb. So there's a lot of manual work that's required. So I think applying those techniques, Barbie is doing their own virtual vlogger. They've been running that for a couple of years now. So I was recently corrected by a developer that AI is not God. It's gonna be a tool that assists human to achieve whatever their goal is. So again, it's a transition, right? Like in the beginning, we'll be all human with a little bit help of AI here and there, and then over time, AI is gonna take over. It's like growing a kid. So back to your question, I think in the beginning, this will be a very good business opportunity to apply it to, for example, Disney, right? Like, hey, we can turn all of your mascots and characters into virtual influencers. And then, so lots of gaming companies has that potential as well. But for my own personal goal, I would like to create mini gods in the future that just kind of go on, live on their own, and then help the world.
Yeah, so just also some insight to some of the stuff that Albert was sharing with me like previously. It's like all the things that you kind of could dream of as a kid, like these are the things that he's thinking about working on, right? Like creating a digital IP and letting that IP run and manage its own social campaigns to generate money for a business that it's running on the side, on top of its main hustle of advertising on Instagram, because it just built the following and they have 2 top 10 Spotify songs and they just released a TikTok that went viral. And this is all a digital IP. So it's definitely left field out there, but this is one of those things where I want to stretch your minds, and that's my biggest thing. If you guys can't all tell yet, it's diversity of thought. So how do you grab information from as many different places? To Albert's point and Eric's point earlier about how Albert integrated the culture in this whole story and took all of those different pieces and then put it into his story. Right. So just think about that as you all kind of progress and move towards that final product or service or whatever your solution is. Just think about, how can I make this the most diverse solution possible? Because the most interesting thing to me about this whole thing is that it's all being redefined. Right. And so if you can be ahead of that curve and start to set the trends that people are searching for, right? Like if you're the ones putting out the content that is getting consumed and you're not the one consuming it, that's when you really start to flip the chasm. And like people really start kind of listening to you more. So yeah, man, I'm excited. What else do we got? I don't know how much more time we have slotted for Albert, but I want to make sure we
can we get a question from maybe one of the ladies?
Come on, don't be shy. Rosabelle, Rosie, Paola, Monique.
There are no dumb questions.
None, zero.
Sorry for calling you guys.
I don't really
go ahead.
Question. I mean, I just thought that you're like what you're exposing us to is like, wow, it didn't, like Travis was saying, it is something that like we all imagine, and just actually thinking you like seeing that you're working on something that like is like going so much towards the future. It's like it makes it like, oh, this is gonna happen. Like that's what I think. I'm like, this is really gonna happen because look, there's already people like creating it, and like what I saw, I was amazed. I love the whole idea of the avatar and the digital influencer like being someone that you can connect to. I mean, it was like stuff out of a movie, but look, it's real. So I was just really impressed. I'm just taking it all in, and I'm totally open to it. And now I'm gonna like follow you and see how you know what happens out of this. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you. One thing I do like to encourage people to do is whenever I'm pitching a client, coming up with a pitch, I like to go as crazy in each direction as far as I can stretch them, because I know the client's gonna bring them back to earth, to something safe, executable, right? So if you give them something 20%, what you delivered will be like 5%. So you might as well just pitch something that's 150%. And then by the time they scale back, okay, passable. So that's how I approach to any problem or any challenges, is that I like to try to step out of the box and try to be as humble as I can. Like, I don't know anything about this subject matter, but as a 5-year-old, what kind of questions would I ask? What would the experts tell me? And then what resembles this problem? So for example, if I have a problem about, let's say, I don't know, cars, right? I don't know anything about cars, but I do know someone who fixes motorcycles. So I'll go ask him, but like, hey, what's your take on motorcycles in general? What's your perspective? Like, what do you think? What do you feel when a client comes up to you with a broken motorcycle? So I try to make connections. So A, I exaggerate in all directions, and B, I try to come up with an analogy that's simple enough for my dumb mind to grasp. So that's just some of the techniques I hope you guys will find helpful.
Amazing. Well, Albert, thank you again for all your insight and your story. I don't want to keep you for too long. And we also have some things to share from our end as well. So guys, give it up for Albert. And Albert, where can we best follow along and keep up with your journey and continue to see all the success that you're no doubt going to achieve?
Well, I guess LinkedIn will be a good place. I just started using LinkedIn, but that's what I'm putting my efforts on right now. You can look me up. My name's Albert Lan, Lan. I have a black and white portrait photo. So
I'll drop his LinkedIn in the chat so everyone can go.
Awesome.
Found you.
Yes, and also our Chiron page on Facebook is pretty active at the moment. It's Chiron. It's at Chiron Interactive.
All right.
Yeah. Appreciate you so much, Albert. And I was just going to say for Insights too, he's got some interesting projects up there. He's even done a real-time production using that digital avatar technology that he has on the Facebook page.
Wow.
Can everybody hear me?
You're breaking up.
Our avatar just had his first live podcast episode.
Oh, There you go. I know a guy that loves
awesome.
podcasts. Awesome. Well, great. Again, thank you so much, Albert. Really, really appreciate your time. Mind blown. If I see more virtual influencers on Instagram, I know who to blame. All right, cool. Having said that, guys.
All right, you guys.
Thank you again. All right.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Al. We'll talk soon.
Cool. All right, guys, moving on. We have about an hour and 15 left. So here's how I'm thinking we divide the time up. I promised to show you guys an example of a new business pitch with the Adidas team. So we're going to breeze through that. I'm not able to show you myself, especially since this is recorded, any of the creative ideas that went into the pitch. But here's the deal. I have a PDF. So after I present what I'm able to present, the strategic upfront here, I will accidentally leave a link to the presentation in an email. And if you guys promise to not spread it, share it, whatever, if I see it on Twitter, I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to accidentally leave a link to it somewhere in an email, and you guys are more than welcome to dig through it, draw inspiration from it. You could repurpose the slides for whatever work you do later on. If it doesn't come back to me, it's fine to use. So that's a deal. So the second part of what I want to get through too is I also want to kick off the ideation sprint for you guys, right? So I already know that at least one of the groups here is focusing on product development, which is really, really cool. And hopefully not all three groups are. Hopefully some of you guys are focusing on content. Some of you are focusing on communications and branding, whatever that looks like. I want to see some variety here to keep it interesting for everyone involved. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite tools when it comes to ideation sprints or just big idea generation in general, and it's created from two executive creative directors, one from Ogilvy and another from McCann, and people that have been using it for ages, for the last 5 years that I've been working across so many different agencies. Hopefully you guys find it useful as well, and then we're going to try and do that in 20 minutes. It's a lot to get through, but we're gonna try and sprint through, and then for the remainder of the time, what I want to do is I want to see you guys present all of your slides. So something that I thought was really, really useful, and maybe I could have shared it a little bit earlier, is the 60-second slide principle, which is something that we've been workshopping in new business pitch teams for ages. It's this idea that when you present, every single slide should be able to be presented and digested by the recipient in under 60 seconds. And going forward, when you're building out your presentations and your slides, hopefully that's something that you can aim towards doing. If your slides have too many words or too many visuals or too many animations, or it takes too long to get through and explain, it's probably not a good slide. So going off of that, hopefully today in your presentations and sharing where you've left off since last week, that's something you can keep in mind, is how, not only what's the content you're presenting, but how are you presenting it? And that's one thing that Albert did really, really well, which is not just the pitch, but the pitch theater, which often counts for up to 70% of the results of whether or not you win a sale, is how well did you actually communicate your ideas and how charming were you to the person that you're selling towards. Cool. So having said that, I'm going to share my screen, and one of you tell me when you're able to see this PDF. We can see it. Great. Perfect. Let's see. How do I read mode? Okay, cool. So a little bit of context for you guys here. This is a pitch we worked on back at Code and Theory in 2018. So the whole idea was Google and Adidas had a year-long partnership for the year of 2019, and we were preparing to launch the world's first cleat, smart connected cleat. So what that means is for everyone that plays, and to be clear, this was a partnership between three major brands, right? One is Adidas. We all know Adidas. Google, obviously. And then the last one is EA Games, one of the largest, if not the largest, gaming publisher in the world. The whole idea is empowering football fans, whether you play FIFA or you play on the pitch, to be able to use a cleat that connects the video game scoring system to your real world biometrics and vice versa. So for example, if you score a goal in real life, it gives you points and perks in FIFA and vice versa. So if you score a goal in FIFA Mobile or FIFA Console, it will then give you a bonus when it comes to shopping at Adidas. So our idea was to basically go forward and pitch our Adidas client, who, by the way, we were already the digital AOR, but this was a special project. And so it was a host of agencies between ourselves and 7 other agencies that also work on the Adidas account. And our job was to not only pitch for the launch plan, so everything around communications and experience planning, but also the naming of the product. Before we got to actually name the product itself, it was called the Gamer, the Adidas GMR. So throughout this presentation, that's how it will be referred to. And right before we get to the naming portion, which is all the creative blue sky ideas, I'm going to pause because I unfortunately can't show you that. But I think the strategic upfront, the storytelling in a very tactical way is really where I want to kind of share most of the learnings. Cool. So to kick off, it's a great idea to always kick off a pitch by reiterating what the RFP was, right? RFP being the request for pitch. So the ask for this specific pitch was 1, create a name, visual identity, and a launch campaign concept that will connect with the audience that is most susceptible to the idea of an interconnected, intelligent football cleat. Right? And number 2, it's to develop a high impact disruptive activation plan that will not only create and generate awareness around the launch of the product in 2019, but generate excitement between gamers on FIFA as well as footballers in a real world pitch to actually talk about the Gamer boot. So our thoughts, the way that we respond to the RFP always has to be laid out cleanly and plainly, right? So again, what Albert was saying, right? Take all of your thoughts, strip out the adjectives and the fluff. What is the most simple way of actually laying out a groundwork? This is sort of what that slide does, right? It's now that we understand what the ask is, here's our approach, right? 1, analyze the audience. So understand one of the 4 C's. 2, understand what it takes to actually drive business outcomes. It's one thing to do beautiful work, it's another thing to do effective work. I care a lot about effective advertising. And so this was all about driving ROI from day 1. Number 3, build a disruptive brand platform. This is a innovative product, right? An innovative product deserves innovative welcomes. And so for our launch, it has to be something that, of course, generates long-term business success and growth, but even in the short term, it's got to be something that is memorable and drives conversation. And lastly, number 4, something that most agencies forget about, a way to measure and optimize your performance. So not only knowing that at launch you're going to be successful, but a way to continue to measure that success and iterate the way you communicate to your audience over time. Cool. So again, reframing the agenda, and this is always good. People are distracted, especially clients. They have a million things going on in their lives. Just break it down very simply. 1, we're going to go through strategic findings and what we know. 2, we're going to lay out the plan. Number 3, we're going to show you the creative, not today. And then finally 4, and this is a secret sauce, and you guys are welcome to look at it later, but how does our agency work? These are the 4 fundamental pieces to a successful new business pitch that I don't expect you guys have a number 4 for our class or our workshop or our strategy boot camp. That's going to be largely up to how you guys operate. And hopefully looking at this PDF on your own time, maybe you'll draw some inspiration. If you have any questions around how Code and Theory operated, I'm more than happy to address that in office hours. Cool. So findings and what we know, the strategic upfront, right? Adidas football today, right? We want to be able to be the company that empowers footballers to test the limits of their imagination, right? Unleashing their creativity on and off the screen, on and off the field. So we conducted 2 series of analyses, right? And this is how we break down our research approach. Often it's more important to do the research. It's important to do the research, but it might even be more important to show your clients how you went about it. And a lot of times when your research may be bad, and that's just because you don't have access to all the fancy tools that maybe a McCann or an Ogilvy has access to, but maybe your approach showed that you have ingenuity or you have an innovative way of thinking, and that's something that will sell a client on, maybe I should choose these guys to work with because they're just wicked smart. So here's our approach, right? One, thinking about the target audience, so doing a lot of quantitative research on prioritizing certain users over others. And then number two, an audit of the space, right? So understanding the FIFA game as well as what it's like to play football in real life and where do those two things intersect. And so moving on, our target audience was really, again, an intersection of two major groups. One, athletes who actually play football, and FIFA players who like to think of themselves as esports athletes, or people who play casually on the pitch, but really they get excited to play at home, right? And both audiences have one thing in common, which is they already know and love Adidas, because Adidas, after all, is a industry-defining, specifically football-defining brand. So that's already something we know they have in common. But even so, between these two groups, we've done a lot of quantitative research around specific interests and affiliations and affinities. So we know they have similar touch points on social. We know they have similar interests in not only the latest gadgets and computers and technology, but also going to live events, and they're entrepreneurial, right? So they're innovative thinkers in their own right. They like to have some sort of freedom. And we know that they follow people, right? They follow people for inspiration because they themselves want to be leaders in their own communities. And so what does that mean? For us, it's finding that hybrid segment. Somewhere in between the football players and the FIFA players is going to be our football gamer for Adidas, right? And creating that hybrid segment. And again, Code and Theory has a host of really fancy schmancy digital tools. So we're able to dig up all these insights. But for you guys, I saw some of your research. I know you guys are more than capable of coming up with these insights, even without fancy digital tools. But for us, what we really figured out using GWI is our hybrid football gamer audience is overwhelmingly male, right? That's not very surprising, especially when you dip into gaming. They are socially connected and image conscious FIFA and football players, right? So they're socially engaged. They're always online. They're trendy, impulsive. They want to be the leaders of the pack, whether it's in fashion or in gadgets or in technology or in their career. These are competitive people that are incredibly social. And they love gaming. And this is something in this segment, you'll find a lot of overlap with this hybrid segment with the segment that you may be speaking to when it comes to Lululemon and Mirror, right? People who love technology and love innovative workout platforms, but then also love actually going and socializing and building their own community. There's a ton of overlap. So hopefully there's some opportunity for learning here. But what was surprising to us is actually, we like to think that people are in love with brands, right? And we think about brands like Outdoor Voices, Lululemon, Nike, Apple. We typically think that people love these brands. We're loyal to them. We listen to all the communications they put out into the world. But for this hybrid segment, what we found is they're more drawn to influencers and influential people, so key opinion leaders, more so than they are loyal to brands. So what's the opportunity there, right? Something to think about. For us, it's distilling all the things that we've talked about in the user profile, as well as some of the initial research we've done. There are 3 insights that we found ways in, right? So one, socially engaged, they tend to follow people more than brands. So for us, the opportunity is who can we leverage, right? Can we activate key athletes and influencers that they follow early on to drive and generate hype around a new shoe that we're launching? The second insight being they want to be the first to try something new, and they're highly influenced by the prospect of looking cool. And that looking cool informs how we approach our campaign launch, right? So we want to create exclusive early trial experiences to make them feel like they're part of an exclusive community, and they in turn will amplify our initial hype. And then finally, we know that they're tech savvy and they like to know how things work, right? That's why they're so great at FIFA, is they figure out how to play strategically. And that's why they're also good at playing football on the pitch. They're good at working with teammates and they want to know how to be better. And for us, the opportunity is, well, then what do we do to bring them into our ecosystem? We tell them how this boot worked, and then we let them figure it out for themselves, how it'll enhance their play, both in the video game and on the field. So what does the gamer experience look like, right? So now that we know a little bit about the audience, what is it to actually play the video games that they're playing? And this is something that we decided to go into because even for our own agency, we were not too experienced in video gaming, right? This is not an area that we have any expertise in. And frankly, it's not an area of expertise for the Adidas team either. They're experts in athletics, not in digital media. So for us, it was a collective learned experience. And one thing that you'll find is really effective in new business pitches is you want to sit side by side with your clients, and you don't want to talk at them, but talk with them. Have a conversation, right? It'll feel more collaborative. And to Albert's point, you know, what if you're the dumbest person in the room? Ask simple questions, raise simple points, and together you'll explore something and you'll walk away having felt like, man, that meeting felt really good. It didn't feel like anyone was being sold anything. It felt like we were exploring a new frontier together. So that's exactly what we did, right? We poured over almost 100,000 Reddit conversations. We surveyed 60 people that are actual professional gamers, and we spent more than 100 hours of gameplay actually figuring out FIFA Mobile for ourselves. And to be fair, yes, for literally 2.5 weeks, I was paid full time to sit there at the office every day and play a video game. Pretty dope. And I gotta say, guys, it's all research. And for you, if you go out and pitch Lululemon a mirror, it might be your job too to actually take a mirror home and spend 100+ hours working out on the platform. That is all research. Right. Again, the point of that slide is to show that we actually had a process and we went through it with some relative rigor, right? Relative to the console, right? FIFA Mobile is a little different than FIFA the console, right? FIFA Mobile is less competitive. So what does that mean for our audience, right? One, it's more about focus on collecting players and earning rewards. So it's a lot about following the physical sport, not just the digital sport, and also understanding the intricacies of football itself. Collecting players like a fantasy sport and creating the perfect team versus the FIFA console, which is all about the match play, competitive and social experience, where the FIFA mobile experience is more about actually the math behind the game itself. Mobile players instead find their social community to collaborate offline, right? So they walk away from the game and they walk onto forums, or they gather in person to talk about, you know, what player should I trade? What player is going to win me this season? And what player is going to give me more points? Really interesting to think about, especially creating a smart connected device. All right. Mobile players, though, sometimes feel frustrated by the lack of control because, again, this game is a lot more about the collection of players than it is about the actual active playing football itself. So when the computer runs a game for you, there's obviously a lot of room to grow, or there's a lot of room for both brands, whether it be EA, Google, or Adidas, to actually give control back to the players. So for us, again, doing that gamer experience audit, we knew that there were 3 major opportunities driven by these insights. One, a solo experience and less competitive, right? So what does that mean for us? We need to make sure that we design experience for the individuals playing football, whether on a screen or on the pitch, to actually have more opportunities to connect and engage with one another. We know they're social and we know they crave a community. Number 2, they want to gather in social for collaboration, right? We already saw from the 100,000 Reddit conversations that they need to talk to each other to strategize, right? So for us, how are we going to operate? It means engaging that community in social media where they are already gathering and actually giving them content and services to better their experience. And what does that look like for us? Well, we know they're frustrated by the lack of control in the game. And so for us, again, our opportunity is to position gamer, our boot, as a means to advance in the game and on the pitch and gain control of the overall sport wherever you're playing it. And so for us, tying this all back together, our strategic approach is going to be defining a relevant positioning for gamer that's going to resonate with our audience and really drive the hype, not only in the beginning, but also sustain the hype throughout. Right? So what's that positioning for us, right? At the end of the day, we need one singular problem to solve for, which is what I was harping on last time. We need one singular narrative to drive the rest of our story. So we start with Adidas football, right? We want to empower you to test the limits of your imagination and unleash your creativity on and off the pitch. That's the first thing we said, right? But for football gamers, for people who are you know, the hybrid audience of both playing on the pitch and on screen, we want to be socially engaged. We want you to be seeking the latest innovations in technology and sport. And we know that you're influenced by looking cool, right? And finally, for the gamer experience, the act of gaming on a screen, we know that you want to have more social experiences and more control. So for us, we know that whenever we launch the boot, that's going to be the opportunity area, the perfect intersection of a social experience, a physical experience, and a digital experience, right? And for us, this is sort of, again, if you went through the Ikigai example, this is similar to an output of Ikigai. So you can start to see how I'm weaving different frameworks into my story without actually literally saying, this is Ikigai or this is 4Cs. Also, I want to pause and make sure that everyone understands I cannot see you. So at any point, if you have a question, please feel free to interrupt me. Awesome. So moving forward with strategic positioning, Gamer gives the football gaming community an edge that enables their in real life productivity, their creativity, and to push the limits of what they do digitally on the screen, whether mobile or console, right? Number two, we know that we want to build an activation plan that ignites for success, right? So from day one, we want to see ROI. And what that looks like is a series of campaign goals. And again, anchoring the story back into exactly what we want to achieve, right? One, we want to be disruptive. Innovative product deserves innovative storytelling. Two, we want to be compelling. We want to speak to this audience in a way that says, well, we're actually adding value to your lives by propelling this piece of footwear into your life. And three, we want to make sure that however we're activating, we want this product to come to life in the stories of our users and not just be a top-down communications exercise. For us, we mapped out what this campaign is going to look like, right? From September to the new year onwards, we've mapped out all of our strategic objectives, our opportunities, and also the key touch points that we're going to leverage to make this story come to life. And I'll stop here for a moment and just share a little bit of my perspective. Code and Theory is one of the most talented design agencies I've ever had the chance to work with, but I'll tell you, their storytelling is nowhere near the level of Droga5 or McCann or Ogilvy or a place like Wieden and Kennedy. Where we fall short, or where we did fall short in storytelling, we more than made up for in strategic positioning and research and analytical rigor. And so that's, I want you to keep that in mind as you look at these slides, right? I don't want you to walk away thinking, wow, this is what storytelling looks like. That's not really the point. The point of these slides is this is what strategic storytelling looks like. Putting together all of your research in a way that's concise, still analytical, but actually shows how rigor gets translated into performative advertising. So starting with the seed phase, where we're really generating awareness, seed and hype are both all about, getting people interested and amplifying a message and getting invested into the story, right? So we want to connect by activating key opinion leaders, influencers, athletes, and seeding some form of value very early on, right? And the way that we're going to do that is primarily through social, out of home, and of course, borrowing the platforms of our key opinion leaders. Moving into October, it's really hooking those people that were interested to begin with in September with exclusive early access to our boot and our digital experience. And in turn, they will amplify our initial hype. So that's a lot of PR. That's a lot of, again, social integration and influencer integration. But now we're also talking about signing up for email, getting onto our website, starting to poke around the Adidas digital ecosystem, so that by the time November comes around and we launch the physical product itself, we've already created an enhanced experience for the early adopters, but we have new opportunities to offer an even larger swath of an audience, right? And so now we're talking paid media, SEO, SEM, paid social, a Twitch integration, getting Twitch streamers and football players alike to advocate this product. And then finally, December onwards, we don't want to just set it and forget it, right? We launch a product, we want it to be a sustained success, right? And that's what makes Nike and Adidas and all these big footwear giants really successful is you don't just launch the Air Force One and forget about it. The Air Force One is still successful 20, 30 years after its initial launch because Nike's so amazing at sustaining hype. Right. So for us, that means making sure that whatever we do, we expand the existing FIFA mobile community and social and offer new reasons to stay connected. This is a lot. I understand that. Right, I'm with you guys. But for us, strategically, mapping out the experience for clients that are very detail oriented, this is, to this day, one of the most fundamental deliverables that I bring to every agency I enter, which is the tactical ecosystem, showing every single idea in the pitch on this map, right? So we haven't even got to creative concepts, but each of these are touch points that will actually drive the user or the target audience or the customer from left to right. So from the attract phase and building awareness all the way to cultivating brand advocacy, we start with traffic drivers. We drive to our specialty online wholesalers. So think like Supreme might be a wholesaler that we work with, or Foot Locker, or Dick's Sporting Goods, right? The digital campaign experience, so our own website, everything that we own in terms of digital assets and properties and content, as well as key city in-store experiences, right? Obviously, that's not going to happen now, but what does the retail environment do for us from a campaign level? All driving to then the conversion phase, which is the point of purchase, where people are ready to actually add to cart and check out, right? And from there, we want to make sure that we are able to re-engage the people that bought that shoe. And if you're a little confused of what re-engaging looks like, here's an example, right? You go to Nike.com, you buy a pair of Air Force Ones, you bring them home, you feel real good. You know what usually happens? You get hit by Nike on Instagram or Facebook or just general SEO, and it says, hey, we know you just bought a shoe, but don't you need socks? That's a great way of cultivating that brand advocacy, because now you're getting hit with ads that actually offer value, which is you may have forgotten another product, or you may have forgotten another service that will even further enhance your initial purchase. Cool. And sustaining momentum long-term also means mapping out all the cultural touch points, right? And so that's wrapping around the final C that we didn't really talk about, which is what are all the major events in the world that will actually help amplify our messaging, right? So everything from PAX East, which is one of the largest gaming conferences, to the UEFA CL Final for football, E3, a digital conference, FIFA EWC final, so for women's football, and gaming, right? That's a major event for the football world. So we've mapped out a few of those examples, and we know that for us, when we generate content, when we generate experiences or services that will drum up hype around our product, we know how to invest based on the audience. Right. So is it evergreen content? Is it gamer specific, or is it going to be reactive content? Cool. And so that brings us to the creative portion, which is where I will leave. But before we wrap up, I'm going to bring you guys close to where I usually go, right? So with that strategic upfront, we sort of have an idea of where to head, right? And that's not to say that that was a creative brief per se, but going from that strategic upfront and thinking about all the positionings, we now have an idea of where we want to take our brainstorms, right? We know where all the touch points are. So if we think about, if we're going to do something on social, we're going to create a series of assets. If we're going to do something with influencers, we'll need certain inputs with them, right? If we're going to launch a TV ad or digital display ads, we know there's a canvas, but what are we painting on it? Something that really helps me is called the Deck of Brilliance. And you don't have to write this down now. I'm going to send the URL out after this class. It's an idea generation tool for creative professionals made by two ECDs, again, one from Ogilvy and another from McCann. And it pulls some of the greatest ads and campaigns ever in the industry over the last 20, 30 years, and it puts it into themes, right? So for example, glorify and celebrate the product, build empathy and support, or dramatize the problem, right? These are all different approaches to advertising that at the root of 7 different examples, you'll find this common theme. And I'll just click in for one just to show you what it looks like. When you go into dramatize the problem, it will give you a little bit of a preamble as to the strategy underpinning why they thought this theme was worth talking about. And you'll see a series of YouTube ads here below from all sorts of different companies, right? Aldi, so retail, Olympus, so photography, Energizer, obviously the batteries, Tide, so you have CPG, Axe, more CPG, right? All these different brands come together with one core example, which is dramatizing the problem, right? And if you use this tool, one of the greatest things about the Deck of Brilliance is you know, you don't have to go in order. So if you're brainstorming a bunch of different ideas and you're saying, well, I'm kind of stuck and I hate the first 9 examples, press shuffle the deck and challenge yourself to think about each of these themes that come up. So use the power of guilt, right? So if you're launching Lululemon and Mirror, how are you going to use the power of guilt to sell your product, right? Well, one example I can already think of is, well, Christmas time is coming around or New Year's is coming around when everybody and their mother talks about, I'm finally going to lose an inch off my waist, or I'm finally going to get a 6-pack, or I'm finally going to run a mile further or do that first pull-up. Right? So using the power of guilt might mean, well, Mirror gives you no excuse because now, you know, you can run outside, you can bike, you can go to the gym, but you also have the gym in the comfort of your own home. So if you're that group that was talking about, you know, women don't feel comfortable in the gym because they might get harassed, or they don't want to be sweaty in a public place, or they don't want to look at a mirror because it makes them uncomfortable. Well, crap, use the power of guilt to shame them into buying the mirror. I'm not saying that's a good example, but that's just one example of how I might use the deck of brilliance. So having said that, that was a whole lot of me talking. Does anyone have any questions? Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, having said that, that was basically, I'm going to stop talking because I want to hear what you guys have to share. And because we went in numerical order last time, this time I want to make sure we go in reverse. So group 3, you guys are up first. Let's see what you got for us since last week.
Okay.
Who's going to share? You. Are you going to share?
The rest of the team? Yes. Meeting.
I'm here.
Okay.
Jose's there. Paola, I don't know.
Paola, are you there? Here. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So, share the deck? I'll share.
Yes.
Sorry, my thing is.
Yes,
Okay. Sorry. Oh, present.
It does look like that on a good day.
All right. Group 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is the last time I'll interrupt. Guys, with the remaining time and interest, I want to make sure that everyone can go and get their due feedback. So I'm going to please ask you guys to do your presentations in 10 to 12 minutes so that I have about 3 minutes to address any feedback, questions, etc. Sound good?
Okay.
Works for us. It works for us. Great. All right. So Lululemon and Mirror, group 3. Okay, great. Sorry, hold on. Wait, I'm sorry. I can't go. All right. So you may have seen the headlines. Some of you may be even experiencing some of these things yourselves, or may know someone that is. Mental illness, and particularly anxiety and depression and loneliness, are affecting Americans in more ways than one. Their health, their well-being, and their pockets. And now, adding fuel to the fire, the current pandemic is turning these issues into a real crisis. A crisis that can't be treated with traditional medicine alone. So, we know Americans have been looking elsewhere, looking deeper, and opening up to taking on a more wholesome approach to their health and fitness. But these solutions will depend on our ability to interact and connect with others. And that everyday ability is being threatened now more than ever. Uncertainty, fear caused by the pandemic is generating a behavioral change. This makes us ask, what if we can't see each other anymore? What if we can't touch each other anymore? What if we can't be with each other anymore?
So, in a world that it's where we're living right now, that you're not feeling safe anymore and meeting people, how would people start getting that, for example, like that work-life balance that they were looking for all the time? how would be a way that people could start like interacting each other? How would we start getting that again? So how can you stay connected with others and with yourself? That's the main question that we want to like bring people to. Like, how can you get in this situation that we're living right now? How can we stay connected with others?
So what we know is that people are tired of always looking perfect. They're searching for ways to be themselves. And Lululemon knows that it's not about just looking perfect anymore. It's about looking deep and finding yourself. Next. So Lululemon understands people's goals and how they feel to unleash their full potential. They are the only brand that's telling people that they can be themselves, that it's okay if you didn't do anything today, you can do it tomorrow. That it's okay to have one step at a time. So they also spending money to let the people feel good when they are sweating. Next.
So then in here, it's how is Lululemon and Mirror bringing that solution for that consumer that is tired of, not wanting to be the one that it's all about perfection, but it's really about digging deep into your soul and making sure that Mirror can help you get there. So Lululemon and Mirror is more about like, yes, it's inside your home, but it's also the benefit of the consumer, of gaining deeper understanding of the consumer for the benefit of that person, right? Because they're trying to build something and they're trying to reinvent and transform that fitness journey that they've been in before, but this time is different. So how can Lululemon and Mirror give that consumer a solution of a new fitness journey that they can probably want, like, better off getting into versus the ones that they've been there before? And more importantly, I think, as we were talking about at the beginning, it's like the isolation and the loneliness and all of that issue that's happening in the US, because we are focused on US market. That's how we're focusing. How does that bring that solution, right? So building communities that have vanished because of the situation that's happening right now, and the uncertainty of, we don't really know when that's going to change, and it may not change, and people are talking about maybe a year or two depending on a vaccine. So that building community is really the biggest solution that Lululemon and Mirror can bring. But more importantly, we would focus on, as we go into the next slide, focus it more into how can Lululemon celebrate that sweat journey with yourself and with others. Because what we're seeing is that it's not about just connecting with other people. It's difficult to connect with other people if you don't connect with yourself before. So we're trying to figure out, as we go into like thinking of tactics, like how it's all about like that spectrum of human connection, and how can you connect with yourself to be able to connect with other people as well, and kind of bringing that to life through Lululemon and Mirror.
Thank you.
Wow. That was a great story, guys. That was clean. That was simple, straight to the point. I love it. Trav, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, no, I was going to say I love it. And also, I apologize for the craziness that you might have saw in the background. My Wi-Fi is crazy, so I had to, like, go on the porch to, like, get that straightened out. But, no, I loved every second of it. And I really loved how you guys wrapped it up about thinking about the different touch points between people and themselves. So different ways that people can connect with themselves and different ways they connect with others. And so I think there's a lot that you guys can play on from that perspective, especially when it comes down to thinking about how Eric laid out the slide during the Adidas presentation, and kind of seeing the different touch points that he had across the different channels, and then thinking about how you can apply that same model to individual people connecting with themselves better. I think that's a huge opportunity, specifically just from an insights perspective, because again, with the rise of things like Headspace and Calm and meditation, it's like, how do you help people better connect, right? When all of these apps and all these other things are out there and there's all this noise, and what can you do to differentiate the way that people connect with themselves? And I also did like the fact that you guys did condense this a lot more. And as you all saw throughout this process, right? Research, you start really, really, really wide. And then we start to narrow down to the very simple elevator pitch and that one-liner problem, opportunity, solution. So yeah, I loved it. So Eric, what about you?
And here's the best part, right? I lost count of how many slides you got, but you did in 7 minutes, right? You breezed through that strategic positioning, 7 minutes. I'm convinced. I know that when I got to the final insight, right, the idea of connecting with yourself, it felt real, it felt true, but more than anything, it felt validated by the work you did up front. And that's exactly what research is supposed to do. It's not supposed to get in the way. It's not supposed to hit you with a bunch of numbers and facts. It's supposed to set you up for the rest of the story, which is really just saying you want to tease the big idea, the big reveal, right? Because that, to Albert's point earlier, that's what wins pitches. It's pitch theater. It's a big idea. It's going big or going home. And I think you guys are on the path to come up with something really, really great. I want to take the opportunity and open it up to the rest of the group here. I mean, what do you guys think? Does anyone here have any feedback for group 3? Does anyone have ideas of where this is headed? Any ideas or suggestions and feedback on the setup of itself? I don't want this to just be about my opinion or just Travis' opinion. What do you guys think?
Don't jump at once.
Hey guys, I love the feel of the presentation. I like that you guys are already at the stage of how it's going to feel in that pitch room, and it almost feels like it's well rehearsed. And we're not. I know you guys are not in the creative execution stage, or you're just barely presenting the strategic positioning, but it feels a certain way. It feels it's going to land actually very similarly to where we think we're going to land. But I love the hard work that was put into that. Those first 3 slides really help with the overall feel of the presentation. You know, you're kind of nodding your head because you're feeling it, you know?
Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
Yeah, it was very well done in the fact that it was a good explanation of how to connect this idea of the mind and the body into one, right? Especially given the times that we're in now, a lot of people are seeking that connection as in many ways as possible, but we're very limited to it. And just the general feeling of it, that's what I got from it, was that it's really just trying to truly understand that you're a person, but you know, it's not just you're working out and you kind of leave behind the mental aspect to it, or you're just worried about your mental aspect and you leave behind the working out. So it's a good way of combining both that I think would work well.
Oh man, I didn't even remember to point this out. I meant to say it when you first started it, but great job, Roosevelt, of starting with the problem. And just to kind of give everyone just like to think about like how we all moved our way into the presentation. Like she set the stage at the beginning, like this is the problem. Those headlines, and I was like, oh snap, she talking about me? And when you do that, it definitely sets the stage, right? So I just wanted to commend you on that because you did a great job by stating the problem at the beginning to kind of set the stage right off the bat.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I also want to, you know, and not to play devil's advocate, but that is not the only way to set up a successful presentation, right? And hopefully everyone understands this. But the way that you guys did it, I think that's the real takeaway is if you choose to set up everything starting with the problem, it kind of does, it does a lot of work for you, right? Because then the rest of the presentation is sort of like resolving that first thing. So in a sense, like if you're in a bind, if you're in a writer's block or whatever, always start with the problem and come back to how are you answering for it. And I think you guys did that really beautifully. If you want to challenge yourselves by any chance, I would say try to start a different way and see if you can end up presenting something as clean, something as compelling in the next few rounds if you want to kind of mix it up and see different styles of pitching. But I think right now it really works. I'm going to move on to the next group, but before I do, I'm going to leave you guys with one question, which is, and hopefully you can answer it now, what approach do you think you're going to take, right? So for the different jobs to be done with such a positioning, I can see it going in so many different avenues. what do you think your solution is going to be? Is it from experience, product, technology, communications? Like what do you think?
No, it's like a combination of two.
Yeah, we were leaning towards product development and experience design, just because it has to do a lot with how to now use Mirror to really get that connection that you're not gonna get if you can't go out. So it really depends on the way that the product is used and the type of experience that we want to create with it. So we're leaning towards that. But I also see that there's other things. I mean, we could, based on how we've set it up, we could really apply it to other things. So, but that's what we're leaning towards.
Very cool. And I would say if you take the same approach of taking it slow, step by step, thinking about the story, and then positioning so if you think about features, if you think about functionalities or services that you're baking into the product itself, if you can make it compelling in terms of, we started here with the problem, this is the solution, this is the human insight that's driving all of our ideas, and here's idea number 1, number 2, number 3, and here's how we're gonna roll it out. If you can tell a story, continue to tell a story, that's really what's going to make the final sell of the big ideas really effective. So I'll just leave you with that tidbit. Group 2, you're up.
All right. I guess I'm presenting.
Hold
on 1 second. Send you my mirror deck here. All right. Lagging over here. Can you guys see my keynote or no?
Sí.
Yeah, but it's like stuck. It's not presenting.
También.
Come on.
Rough.
All right, hold on. Let me try this again. Come on, keynote. All right, well, my keynote's not responding, so give me a second.
Force quit.
That's exactly what's happening right now.
While we're waiting for that to come up, I think I felt like this week we kind of struggled to get to the actual problem. I think we're getting there now. I still think that we needed some time to really hone in on what that is, and we actually haven't practiced this presentation. That's why Rogelio's like, I guess I'm presenting. So it's still very rough. It took us a little bit longer to get to a unified direction. And I think obviously we still have some work. Hopefully the next few days we'll be able to get that going.
Awesome, guys. Well, the good news is ideating is the easy part, right? Coming up with big flashy ideas. Once you have the problem, it's going to come fluidly. So really nailing down that problem, I can't blame you, right? Like that's the hardest part of all strategists' jobs. So no sweat. I'm excited to see what you guys do have, and hopefully some of the feedback and the session we'll have today will help illuminate the direction. But again, no stress.
All right, awesome. So like Mike was saying, we were discussing what the problem or identifying what the problem is. We met several times about it, and it came down to a few things, right? We realized that currently we are facing a lot of unrest and uncertainty everywhere we look. And in order to combat this stress, we're looking for fitness as a partial solution to that. But the same anxiety arises when some even attempt going to the gym. And like the fear of being the center of attention, receiving inappropriate comments or concerns over their own body image cause many women to think twice about participating in traditional gym settings. And what we see as an opportunity is really that we want to empower individuals to control their fitness where they feel safe and comfortable. And as a solution, we think we are going to be doing this by positioning Mirror as the future of fitness, where women are in total control of their workout experience. And we'd like to highlight the accessibility, flexibility, and most importantly, the potential of a gym built around their lives. Thank you.
Very cool. Trav, you want to case off?
Yeah. So I think this is the group you guys are more focused on solving this problem specifically for the females, right?
Yes.
Got it. And so as I could definitely see where you guys are at and trying to kind of get some more legs and kind of push it a little bit more. So a couple of things that I do like is I do like how you are. It's very to the point, right? Like you're wanting to solve this, the accessibility, flexibility, and the potential of a home gym that's built around the lives of women. And so I think just kind of like specifically, I feel like if that's a problem you guys are going to want to attempt and go after, I would just get really thoughtful around, what sorts of ways you can position this. I definitely think there's something there, especially with how, like the problems that you guys mentioned about women being afraid to kind of be in the gym and that sort of setting. So I definitely think there's potential. I'm just trying to close the gap a little bit. Just trying to close the gap and trying to give you guys some legs to kind of finish this out.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I have for now. But yeah, Eric, maybe I'll have something to add a little bit more when you add on.
No, 100%. I think a lot of what you're referring to, those gaps right now could definitely be filled by some kind of share of conversation, right? So like parsing out specific sound bites, and it should not be that hard to look up, whether it's like news articles and headlines, or just literally manually hardwiring your way into social conversations, whether it's Reddit, Twitter, Instagram. Twitter, I would bet, is probably a great place to find some of that. The downsides that you refer to. So the kind of self-criticism about what your body looks like, how you feel, but then also, what does it feel like to go to the gym and not feel safe? The one thing that I would push back on is when you look at opportunities, it has to be something that only you can own, right? That opportunity has to be something where Mirror has a unique ability to speak to and deliver experiences around that no other brand can really tackle in the same way. That positioning is great, and I'm 100% sold on it. What I'm not sold on is what differentiates Mirror's approach to making the home feel like the future of fitness versus a Peloton versus another lookalike product, right? So I would think a lot about like what has Lululemon done in the past, whether it's female empowerment, by literally spearheading the entire athleisure moment, right? Or creating or infusing, I think they infuse like silver into their apparel so that it destroys bacteria over time, or make sure that there's like anti-stink technology, right? So they've always pioneered things that are supposed to make you feel more comfortable despite sweating. So what do those things mean when you generate ideas around a product that's supposed to make you feel comfortable in your own skin, in your own home, etc., working out? So that's sort of where I would head. And I actually don't know that you guys don't have a problem to solve for. I think it's more of like just literally adding more material to validate some of the claims that you're making. I think that's literally it. And if you just spend a day or two just gathering resources, sound bites, screenshots, whatever it looks like, and putting that together, I think that will very quickly lead you to the idea generation phase of this. I guess we can call it a workshop. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I would also think a little bit about, what is some of the language around brands having tried to make spaces feel a little bit more comfortable, right? Equinox does a lot of work around LGBTQ communities, right? So they had launched one of the most successful campaigns during Pride Month. I think it was called the Equinox Alphabet or something like that, where they literally went through the entire alphabet of the LGBTQ continuum. And for every single one, they had a word associated that starts with the first letter of that alphabet. And they would actually show you creatively like what it looks like to be part of that community. So I think that's a case study where I would look at, another fitness brand doing a lot of work around making sure that everyone feels included and comfortable, and then start to draw from that competitive audit to help inform the way you flesh out that problem solution paradigm. So that would be my biggest feedback. Before we move on to the next group, though, I am curious from your guys' perspective, like where do you think you would want to be headed? Same thing I asked group 3, right? Like where do you guys think you're headed in terms of the final ideation and sort of the output? Like where would you want to play in?
That's a good question. I think that really comes down to we were thinking brand strategy, creative positioning. We were thinking overall social ambassadors, and we were thinking comms planning and content creation. We were just kind of highlighting those as to that could be where we go. We just didn't really decide or have a specific direction, but we did obviously mention those.
100%. And I think the beauty of brand and creative positioning, which is a little different than product development and experience design, right? Those two things are always going to come after defining the problem, because you never want to generate features or services before understanding the value you're going to ultimately provide. But when it comes to brand and creative positioning, you do have the opportunity to have a little more creative leeway, which means that I don't normally recommend this, but maybe take a few minutes and exercise by yourself, just ideating, like, what would I do if this was at a very beta level, right? What are those creative ideas that I can just write down on a napkin that might inform the way I approach my strategy upfront, right? So basically going backwards and saying, ideally I could do this kind of creative deliverable, and then how do I prove that this brand positioning is what the world needs from Lululemon right now, what we need from Mirror right now, and then sort of work your way backwards. Maybe that exercise is something that will help you in your process. But cool, awesome. That leaves us just the perfect amount of time to go back to group 1. I'm excited to see what you guys have.
Hey, Eric, can you check if Pablo is trying to enter the room really quick? Yep. He's having some electrical power issues.
No.
I've had a bunch for like 2 days.
Yeah, no, I mean, nothing.
No, he's not there, right? Okay.
No.
It's all good. Yeah, he like literally is freaking out on WhatsApp right now. Like, I got kicked out. But anyway, we sorted it out.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share on my end.
Yeah, you do that.
Yeah, so
he's back.
Oh, he's back.
Awesome.
Woohoo.
Welcome back. All right.
Here we go.
Can everyone see my screen here?
Yes.
Sir.
Okay, perfect. So we are basically all just gonna take a page here on what we're gonna present. But just to give you an idea of what we're gonna take you through, it's obviously, story, opportunity. We're gonna take you through problem, opportunity, and then target. And we had a lot of different ideas on how we were actually gonna solve this. And what problem we wanted to attack. So we kind of compartmentalized that into 2. We kept the deck really brief, so we're gonna all just be able to breeze through it. But as you're going through, you'll see there'll be a number 1 and a number 2 for each slide, and that will essentially be what we're trying to solve for each. So I hope you guys understand what I mean, but I think you will as we go through. So
cool.
All right.
I will pass it on to CJ. Go ahead.
To CJ. So we really wanted to focus on the task at hand. Our research was really wide, and we had so many possible directions to go in, and we really noticed that as we vibed up with each other, and we really had to listen. We all have different expertise and to bring to the table, and we settled on a very specific story. And basically, Lululemon's out there killing it, but that comes with problems of expansion and whatnot. And then Mirror gets launched in 2018 as an interactive home workout platform exclusively. As you will see, that's one of the things we're trying to solve. So Mirror had previous partnerships with Lululemon in the example like brand ambassadors and things like that. In that relationship, we believe the opportunity was very evident. Mirror's target customers are very similar to Lululemon, and they have a 50% overlap there, which is amazing. If we fast forward to 2020, Lululemon acquires Mirror for $500 million. But why? Okay, so Lululemon has presence in Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand, UK, Singapore, bunch of countries. But it depends almost exclusively on North America, a whopping 72%. And that's the crucial moment that defines this union. So Lululemon North American sales for the last 12 months totaled $3.3 billion, approaching a revenue threshold that analysts say requires expensive marketing and other pricey investments to surpass. However, Lululemon's goal is to reach and grab the incremental at-home fitness customer away from companies like Peloton and this increasing movement of at-home fitness, gadget, wearable, smart home training devices.
So that leads us to our problem. We tried to focus on the future and some of the gaps that are landed by Lululemon as well as Mirror. And so we came up with a consolidated two-step approach regards to the problem. So essentially Mirror has a limited market exposure and does not have a major presence outside of the United States. This is also parallel with Lululemon in a sense that they have 72% market penetration in the United States, and they have increased their stores and exposure to EMEA as well as Asia Pac. Namely, they have recently opened up a store in Japan, which is the flagship store, as well as the largest store in Asia Pac. And so they have made these strides to really, expand their brand. In addition to that, we're talking about industry. The device does not fulfill its potential. So we're talking about, in particular, the Mirror. We recognize that there's a lot of technological innovation that could be expanded with Mirror. And unfortunately, as it stands right now, it's solely focused on health and fitness.
So that those are the two problems that we've identified and that we are trying to solve for. And these are kind of opportunities that we've been looking at. And the hope of showing you both of these is kind of to get a gauge of what you guys think may be the best one for us to try to attack that might be more realistic or more simple or the best one to approach. So to approach the problem of presence, we were talking a lot about Sweat Life. And obviously this is a huge component about everything that Lululemon does. So the idea of them acquiring Mirror and bringing this into, everything that they do into the Sweat Life concept, they could essentially kill two birds with one stone, which is one, for Mirror to actually expand their market reach out of Mirror outside of the US. And two, for Lululemon to increase the Sweat Life community with an actual device that will expand their omni guest experience, right? So we know that, Peloton has over 1 million subscribers. And the reason why is because they have this device that creates more of this, this community, whereas Lululemon has this omni guest experience and they're focused in health and fitness, primarily, in apparel, right? So that's that's what the opportunity we see to solve for presence, and then the opportunity that we see to solve for industry. And here's where we're kind of going very far-fetched, so bear with us here. We see like a couple different opportunities that we can do to solve that. So one is to expand the types of classes. Right now it's only health and fitness. So we were thinking that there are a lot of things outside health and fitness that could be types of classes or courses, even one-on-one tutoring, especially with everything that's going on right now with COVID, that could be incorporated into the platform. On the other hand, begin expanding beyond health and fitness. So the way what we're thinking, right, is right now everything they do, from what I understand, is business to consumer, right? Like they're selling directly to consumers. But if they could dive into other industries like business to B2B, business to business, we were thinking in areas like telehealth, education, real estate development, nursing facilities, physical therapy. I mean, there was countless ideas and ways that we could take that approach. Another approach that we were talking about is incorporating a virtual assistant technology into Mira. So that idea came from the fact that we all have, these devices in our home, whether it's Alexa or, whatever it may be, but none of them have an actual visual presence. They're all just devices that sit on our surface other than, and that's it. So that's another approach. And then another one that we were talking about, which I think even might have come from an article, which is to incorporate augmented reality technology into it and open the platform up to the clothing industry or the apparel industry as a whole to be able to, try on clothes or see how they fit, or whether it's hold a bag or whatever it may be. So I will pass it on to Pablo, if he's with us.
Yes, I'm here. You guys hear me okay?
Perfect. Yes, we do.
Okay. Sorry about this. We're dealing with a tropical storm down here and we're losing power throughout the day. So basically what we have seen is that through this presentation, what we noticed was that the Lululemon is very, very heavy on sweat life. It's an idea that they have, right? And it's this community of sweat life people that they're really trying to fulfill. But what we saw was that Lululemon is basically saying, we are providing you clothes to sweat in. And what we think is that we can incorporate Mira as the activity that you actually sweat from. So it's a full incorporation of it, right? So the target would be millennials and Generation Z, which is a overlapping target between the two companies. Income levels normally middle to higher income, fitness fashionable, technology savvy, wellness and health conscious, the people that want to look good going to the gym, at the gym, coming out of the gym, solo immersive engagers in that they want privacy to be able to work out inside of their home, but at the same time, they want to be able to feel social and be with a group or a team. And it's really beyond fitness, like some of the other presenters were saying, that it's mind, body, and soul, really alignment into this sweat life, right? And that would cover the sweat life proportion as far as our target. As far as the capabilities would really be more into Mira, as we've said before, that it has the capability that you can expand this experience into other areas, into a bit more of beyond the business to consumer. You can go into completely different industries with recovery from injuries, physical therapy, telehealth, like we were saying, and really also to be able to expand the target, to hone in on this group and expand the experiences through Mira with personalized experiences. And that would be in conjunction with Lululemon of their OmniGuest experience of this sweat life that we would really bring to them. So thank you very much. And I apologize again. I'm over here in the dark trying to do this presentation. Sorry.
That's a good outro.
Real MVP. I don't care what nobody says.
All right, I'll stop sharing here.
Amazing. Trav, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sorry, I just dropped my phone. I'm like I've literally been holding my phone in my hand the whole time, so I'm just kind of like, oh, sorry, that is shaky. No, yo, so I love. I had to contain myself for how excited I kept getting every time I saw a new slide. So that was just because I really loved it overall. Couple of things that I really liked at what you did that I want to point out. One, the fact that you thought about outside of health and fitness applications. That is huge because, again, I think one thing that is easy for all of us to do is to kind of think about, like, the health and fitness positioning. And I loved how you kind of brought in telehealth, right? You brought in potentially hospitality, like all these different spaces that can potentially be innovated in with the use of the technology and the findings so far. So good job there. I do love that you guys laid it out in 2 different categories, right? So you kind of gave yourself a couple of different options for concepts. I'm trying to think too, like one of the other pieces that I really loved was I'm trying to think about slide 2, but like I can't see it in my head right now.
I can bring it
Brandon.
Up. Yeah, I got you. Problem. How could you? You never remember slide 2?
It's like 4 slides.
He loves the problem.
Yeah. So yes. So the problem, and I think this was really, really key, is that you kind of really removed it. And this is kind of how you led to the thinking of different applications. Like the device does not fulfill its potential because it's currently only being focused on health and fitness. Like that is exactly the line that I was looking for. And I really love that you did that because, again, it doesn't pigeonhole you into this like health and fitness category. And you can really start to think about like, oh, wow, like, is there $1 billion opportunity in healthcare right now that we could solve that no one's looking at? And I think that's another place where you can really get a lot of traction. Because, again, Lululemon and Mirror, they're thinking like, how do we, like you said, take market share from Peloton, right? Like that's how they're thinking, like we need to beat them. Whereas like when you come from an approach of how can we create an opportunity and use the insights that we have to create a new category and just capture market anywhere, right? I think that's like a great way to look at it. So I really loved that you guys went outside the industry. That was my like big favorite part of this.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Love it. Yeah. And I'm gonna be the naysayer on this one. So I'm gonna get all the negative crap because I think you guys know where the positives are, right? And I think you guys know that there are 2 really great directions. So I don't need to keep harping on the positives. Here's the negatives, right? So the first thing that I found that was so excruciating to have just missed it. I am so sold on this idea that the device does not fulfill its full potential, but I wish you literally just added in that one line from the CEO of Mirror that said, we want this to be the 3rd screen in every person's digital ecosystem. Adding that one line right there would have been like, it would have been
Michael.
Someone took that shit out, didn't they? Someone took it out.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Mirror is a vessel for content.
Yeah.
Because this, as eloquent as the sentence is, it does not stand on its own, right? Because of course it fulfills its potential. How it just got bought out for a whole $100 million. Like, why wouldn't it fulfill its potential? Nobody's buying a shit product, right?
You never know with Silicon Valley these days, but good point. You're right.
That's what I'm saying is like you got to validate every claim because every time you open up with a claim, the client's sitting there and they're wondering, how can I make their lives miserable? How can I say no to every yes they pose, right? So I would say that's the first thing that I think was missing, and it's such an easy fix for you guys. I think the second thing is I do think that both the directions are really interesting, right? One is how do we grow Lululemon's market cap? And therefore then Mirror, right? And the other is how do we make Mirror grow its market cap by not reinventing itself, but being able to pivot into other industries. But I think it's a little hard to go down that path for me personally, because I think Mirror just got acquired. So what they are probably focused on right now is how can we be the most Lululemon we can be, and then we can pivot, right? We got to fulfill the brand adoption before we think about the product expansion.
Can I interject? I think we wanted to really we didn't land it The CEO thing, I guess we missed it. We did discuss it. Michael brought it up like a billion times. A billion times. But we didn't want to land it completely. We just wanted to really stick to the story and opportunity problem target. However, if I can express it, not in the deck, not whatever, to see if we are in the right path, is that we want to use the sweat life concept in order for expansion. So because we put that mirror in people's houses, and now this mirror not only trains me, but does nutrition counseling, mental health, all this stuff, all of this is wellness, even fashion advice. All of this is wellness, and it is the sweat life. We just didn't want to, I don't know, land it. I don't know why. Now that
No, and it's totally fine, because I think, you know, at the end of the day, this isn't like a pitch, right? So
yeah,
we're only workshopping ideas. So I think it's definitely fair not to have landed fully. And I am convinced it is a good avenue to go down. But I don't know that you could go down the second path without also touching on the first, right? Because a big barrier to Lululemon's growth is that you can't always sell every audience on clothing. And Nike knows this because they've made the Nike burqa, right? Like the Nike cannot exist in the Middle East because their cultural boundaries forbid you from wearing, for example, a sports bra. Like there's no world where you're gonna be wearing a sports bra as a female athlete in the Middle East, or a female identifying athlete, right? So that's just one tiny example. But another example of soft power, we might call it, is, for example, in China, right? China as a cultural marketplace, I would say, is probably like 10, 20 years behind the American marketplace, in the sense that big, flashy luxury brand logos are going to be so much more valuable than having a superior product. People want to signify their wealth and success and their hard work more so than get a product that helps them get there, right? That's their own grit will earn them success, and they want their clothing to reflect that, not enhance that. You know what I mean? So in that scenario, Lululemon will never grow as rapidly in China than it does in America, because Lululemon is all about the sweat life, which is not showing off the logo. And my entire closet is Lululemon specifically for that reason. I hate logos. I never want to see it. I don't know where you got your shirt. I don't want to know where you got your shirt, because it doesn't matter. If your shirt's comfortable, if it's sweat wicking, if it's XYZ and it kills bacteria, that's all I care about, right? The logo gets in the way. So that's probably like a market cap right there for the Chinese market. But what they do appreciate in China is being able to work out at home, because guess what? It really sucks to breathe in the air in Beijing and Shanghai 90% of the year, because there's a lot of pollution. Or maybe because it's crowded and you don't want to wiggle your way through a gym of like 7,000 people crammed into 300 square feet. So if I get to work out at home, if I get to get my nutritional value, if I get counseling on my mental health, if I get career counseling even, or telemedicine, telehealth, whatever, even if you tell me that ASMR is trending or white noise is trending for sleep health, which is both very true, these are things that combine the first track with the second track, and they go hand in hand. So I would actually challenge you guys to stop it with the two tracks, because I do think there are ways to connect the two, and that connection is going to give you a much more compelling story than just separating the two, right? Because the more things, strategic imperatives for a brand that you can tackle in a cohesive, logical way, the more compelling you as an agency will be. And I'll finalize with one thing, which is, if you remember in my Adidas pitch, right? One thing we did was, this is a product that's built for two distinct audiences, gamers and athletes. And we built a hybrid audience because those audiences do intersect. And that's how we decided to tell the story, which is, we don't want the 100,000 people over here and the other 100,000 people over here. We want the 20,000 people that are in both, right? And that's going to inherently lessen your impact in terms of ROI from day one, but eventually you'll see it rebound, because if you tackle one core audience really, really well, chances are they will amplify your impact in a broader marketplace. And we know that's true because that's exactly what Lululemon did. They tackled the yoga marketplace first, and look where they are now. They got men thinking it's a men's brand. They got women thinking it's a women's brand. They got yogis thinking it's a yoga brand. And they got people in corporate offices thinking it's a brand that makes tech wear that allows you to have a more comfortable commute. They are everything to everyone, to so many different audiences. So we know that starting specifically and building out into a hybrid audience will gain you success. So prove it, right? Tell me a story, show me the research. You guys have it. You have all the research in the world in that first slide already. Just draw it out and find that hybrid between problem 1 and problem 2. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So I do have a question though, because that, like, when we were going through this in you know, on our end, which we've been meeting like these last couple of nights, and really going at it, that like when I look at the opportunities and what the solve is, I think more of, obviously, for one, it feels like more like we would be developing a campaign, right, to roll it out to the market, versus number 2, which feels a lot more like it's product innovation, right? And I think you brought up an amazing point, which realistically, could they do more? Yes, but now that they are acquired by Lululemon, you know, obviously they need to squeeze it for what they got it for, which is to squeeze fitness, right? And the health industry. So the probabilities of them investing money, you know, and injecting capital or merging with somebody else to try to make that happen is slim to none. So I guess there's 2-part, but really my question is number 1, we looking at that more of a campaign, and number 2 being more of product development?
I mean, I think the simple answer is yes, right? I mean, yes, obviously. Like, the second one lends itself to how do you build a better product that's going to fulfill the own product's profitably, right? And number 1 is going to be how do you position your brand in a way that's scalable across multiple cultures. I don't know that number 1 is that interesting for the purpose of this boot camp, because I certainly have no expertise in local markets, right? And I think working at a big agency, you get very used to working on AOR accounts, which means that you have a general brand pillar or brand North Star, and then it's up to the local market agencies to kind of distribute that message in a way that translates well. So that's not really the purpose of like a new business exercise. But here's what I will say, right? There are 2 ways to look at how you're going to end up, which is, you know, when we do new business pitches, we look at it from the perspective of the customer, we look at it from the POV of the client, and then we of course want to look at it through the perspective of your creative talent, right? If you come up with a great campaign idea, you win the business, you bring it back to your agency and nobody wants to work on it, then why the fuck did you bother winning, right? So I would say, here's a way to think about it, right? Do you want to be selling picks and shovels, or do you want to be selling gold? Right. And the reason why I say those 2 things, and another way of looking at it is, do you want to sell vitamins or do you want to sell painkillers? Right. One is Lululemon thinking, shit, like I'm just not going to raise my market cap. And that's really going to suck, because at the end of the day, Lululemon's a private company. The CEO got hired because its stakeholders expects him or her to generate more revenue than they did last year. Yeah. Right. The vitamins is like, okay, it's nice to increase the productivity of this mirror product. So like, what are some of the features we can work on? But the way that you sell in certain features is to actually build a campaign to generate interest or cultivate interest around certain features you're going to build. COVID-19 presents us with an opportunity to think about things like telehealth, telemedicine, you know, audio visual therapeutics in the home space, of course. But is Lululemon, as a company, as a brand, is their purpose in the lives of their customers really to provide those services? And how does it benefit Lululemon's trajectory? They probably don't care all that much, I'm gonna be honest, right? I care a lot, because as a customer, I think that's great, right? That's gold right there. But I'm not so inclined to think that, you know, that's going to be a reason for me to buy the mirror. As a customer, I bought into Lululemon because they make great clothing and they fit my lifestyle. The mirror is supposed to help me exercise at home using my Lululemon clothing that I just spent an exorbitant amount of money on, right? But I'm not gonna ever buy a mirror because it's getting me closer to my doctor. There are other telemedicine apps, there are telemedicine platforms for me to do that. One Medical, for example, GoodRx, Capsule, Ritual, whatever. That's not what I look to Lululemon for. So if we're thinking about like, if you gun to my head, you were like, Eric, which direction are you going in? I'm much more interested in the statement that the mirror isn't fulfilling its full potential, hard stop. Why is that? Because Lululemon is capped as a business, and Mirror is fundamentally the greatest opportunity for the business to grow beyond its current market cap, right? And saying that allows you to go into many, many different directions, because now you get to work on both the brand positioning and the campaign, as well as a product roadmap. And so that's sort of the way that I would think about it.
Amazing.
Makes sense.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. This was really, really interesting. I'm not gonna lie, because I don't think this was necessarily like a story, but I think the ways that you guys talk about like the different problems and opportunities, like this is like a very traditional like planner sit down for like 500 hours and it comes back and they're like, yo, this is fucked. I don't know how to approach this, but this is really interesting. So I really do appreciate this. I think there's a lot here.
Okay.
Cool. Guys, we're over time, but groups 1, 2, and 3, a phenomenal job as always. I'm blown away. Group 2, I think you guys are close to landing the problem. And I think as soon as you do, you're just gonna take it and fly. I think there's gonna be a lot of ideas that come out of this idea of, first of all, your target audience is specific, so that enables a lot of really big creative thinking, right? Because I think oftentimes when your opportunity is too big, it's like, where do I even start? So I think you guys have a really interesting problem to solve for. I think group 1, you guys have a really, really interesting kind of approach next week as you ideate. Like, I really want to see that streamlined story lead to some initial brainstorming and ideas. And then I think group 3, that's a powerful story. I think you've landed exactly where you need to be. And now it's just, how can you brainstorm? How can you come up with ideas? Blow us away with some big blue sky thinking. So all around, great job, guys. Trev, do you want to ring us out?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was going to say kudos and like great work, everyone, so far. All the presentations look great. I feel like everyone's making a lot of great progress. You guys are getting a lot of great ideas out. You're sharing a lot of unique thoughts. So great job there. I also loved everyone's feedback from early with Albert, and hope, having him in class today was helpful for everyone. Hope everybody learned something new that they can apply to, their pitches or to their businesses or just life in general. And then also I want to end by asking everybody if they understand what we need for next week, so Eric and I can sleep before next class and help us out. Like, is everyone cool with like what has to be kind of quote unquote turned in for like next week?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not understanding what we have to deliver next class.
There you go. I'm glad you asked then, Trev. So essentially for next week, I think it's a little weird, right? Because I think the 3 groups have pretty different tasks, right? So for group 2, it's finalizing that story, deciding on what is the core problem you're solving for. You've sort of identified the opportunity opportunity already. So then it's just kind of like backing up with the problem that you're solving for and just qualifying it and bolstering that storyline up front, and then starting to think about what are the big ideas. So what avenue do you want to go down? Is it storytelling? Is it product development? Is it positioning, right? And it sounds like it's a lot about positioning. So I think that work is cut out for you. And then it's just thinking about like, okay, so if we pick a position, how are we bringing that into the world, right? Is it a series of PR blitzes, and what does that look like? Is it using influencers, and which influencers are we going to use, and how do we use them, right? For this last group that just went, right, I think for you guys, it's really just, again, thinking through how are you going to either, my advice is to find the common ground between pathway 1 and pathway 2, and then starting to ideate around what are your big ideas, what are your tactical executions. So it sounds like a little bit of a mix between the kinds of product features you would like to build, validating them and why and who are they for, and then also thinking about like as a positioning, how is Mirror going to help Lululemon overcome not being able to penetrate multiple markets and not just the United States, right? And then for the first group that won, I think for them it's quite clear. It's product development from their standpoint, right? Like, what do you have to do to make sure that Mirror and Lululemon is now the company that's going to pioneer an inward search of what the sweat life means internally to you? So then that sounds like a lot of positioning, again, with a lot of creative communications, and then think about what are the product features that support that. So again, this is the ideation phase. So brainstorming, like, and again, going back to the Deck of Brilliance, and remember, I'm going to send a recap email, so you don't have to remember everything I'm saying, but using things like the Deck of Brilliance to kind of kickstart your thinking. What are the creative territories you want to own that are going to help distribute, distill, and translate the brand positioning into whatever tactic that you deliver next week? Does that help?
I'm just gonna add one thing to Eric's color. Keep it simple. Like when all else fails, going back to what Albert said earlier, when you're coming across a lot of these problems and you're trying to figure out kind of where we lie on it, it's like, can this be communicated to a third grader? Does this make sense? Am I asking very basic questions? What, why, how, right? Just definitely simplify. And yeah, I hope that clears that up, Brandon. Does that answer your question?
Totally does. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Well, thanks for another great class. We're more than halfway through, and we're in the home stretch. So next week, it's going to be awesome. And hopefully for the last class, we'll have some guests join us and maybe give some advice, take a look at your work, take a look at your output, and then who knows where we'll go from there.
Yeah. Also, side note, if we just so happen to get someone from Lululemon or Mirror up in the class, would anyone feel like weird or like scared to present?
Nah.
I'm just asking for a friend.
Depends on how strong our idea is.
Bring it,
Nice.
bring it, bring it.
Do we all get
All
yoga
right, Eric.
pants?
I don't know. Well, you could also get mini mirrors from Mirror. Who knows?
All right. We'll see. All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for their time. Have a good rest of your night. And see you next week.
Yeah.
That's good. Have a good one, y'all.
Peace.